The wind was always dry on the planet Jorah, carrying the red dust of the desert across the wide open land, far away from the colony stations, past the hills and broken roads. A small figure worked alone in silence. Her silver skin shimmered in the sunlight, and her white hair fell over her face as she bent to pick up another brick. She was an alien girl, no more than 19, thin and quiet. She had arrived 6 weeks ago, walking from the north with no ship, no family, and no name. Since then, she came every day to the same empty field, always at sunrise, always alone. She had no workers, no machines, just her hands, old tools, and a pile of human-style bricks. Each morning, she began the same way. She would kneel, place a single brick, whisper something, then keep building. No one from the colony bothered her. She was too far away. And no one cared much about one strange girl with strange habits, but one man watched her. Every single day, his name was Jack, a human widower. He lived in a small cabin on the edge of the rocks. Half a mile from the girl's building site, he kept to himself. Only went into town once a month for supplies. He rarely spoke to others, and no one asked him questions. Everyone knew he had lost his alien wife and child many years ago. And since then, he had become like a shadow. But now, that quiet man had started to watch again, from behind dusty windows, through long binoculars. He studied the girl like she was a puzzle. She never looked back at him, never waved, never spoke. She only built, slowly and carefully, brick by brick. Her building was small at first, like a hut. But after a few weeks, walls rose and the shape became more like a house. A home, not a lion style, but human. She was using human methods, human materials, even old earth tools. That confused Jack the most. One evening, just before sunset, Jack walked out and sat on the edge of his porch with a cup of bitter tea. The wind blew across the land, and he watched her again. The house now had 4 walls and 2 windows. The roof was half done, but something felt strange. He squinted, leaned forward, and counted again. 1, 2 windows, 3 walls, 4 sides. No door. There was no door. He stood up slowly, confused. Why would someone build a house with no door? How would she go in? That night, Jack couldn't sleep. The image of the house without a door stayed in his mind. He tried to push it away, but it stuck like a thorn. The next morning, he left something near the building site. He walked while she was away, left it under a stone, and came back quickly. It was a note written on old paper, just for words. Why no door, girl? He didn't expect an answer, but he watched from his cabin anyway. The next day, something changed. The girl picked up the note, read it, then looked toward his cabin for the first time, only for a second. Then she turned away. But when Jack looked through his binoculars later, he saw it a small square window, newly added, facing toward him that night. He sat at his window, the wind howling through the open fields. He watched her again, but something was different. She wasn't building. She was sitting on the ground, crying, silently. With her back against the bricks, Jack felt a strange pain in his chest. Something old and forgotten. The next morning, he walked outside and found something on the ground near his porch. It was a single brick, carefully placed on its bottom side, hidden from the sun. Was a name written in soft black ink, Morel, his late wife's name. His hands shook as he held the brick. How could the girl know? She had never met Morel, never seen their home, never been part of their story. Unless this was part of something bigger. Jack looked out at the field again. The house stood still under the sky, silent and strange. No door, only windows, only questions. But now, Jack couldn't look away. He had to know more, because something told him, deep in his bones, that this girl wasn't just building a house. She was building something meant for him. And he needed to find out why Jack didn't sleep much anymore. His nights were filled with old memories, and now, with questions about the alien girl building a doorless house just beyond his land. The brick with his wife's name, Mira, sat heavy on his table. He had turned it over 100 times, touched the soft black ink like it was her skin. But it gave no answers. He stared at it again this morning. Eyes tired, hands trembling, the pain in his chest was no longer numb. It had started to burn again, just like it did years ago. Back then, Jack had been a dreamer, a man full of hope. He was one of the early humans who came to live among the stars. Seeking peace and purpose, he didn't come for money or power. He came because he believed in building a better life, and he had found that life in Morel. She was an alien woman, quiet and strong. Her people looked different: silver skin, glowing eyes, soft voices, but she had a heart that felt deeply. They met on a construction team, both helping to build shelters for new colonies. Jack was good with tools, and Morel was good with people. She helped him learn the alien language, and he taught her human songs. They fell in love slowly, carefully, like two broken things learning to fit together. And then came the baby. Jack remembered the joy, the fear, the hope that grew every day in that small room they called home. They painted the walls, bought a tiny crib, chose a name, Luma. It meant light in Morel's language. But the joy didn't last. The birth went wrong. The colony doctor arrived too late, and there was a storm that knocked out the power. Morel didn't survive. The child didn't cry. Jack lost both in one night, and with them he lost himself after that. He sold everything and moved to the edge of nowhere, a place where no one came. A place where memories couldn't follow, except they always did. Now, this strange girl had brought them all back. He stood on the porch and looked toward the house with no door. The girl was working again, slow and steady. She had added another wall, but still no way in. Jack didn't know what he felt: anger, confusion, hope. He picked up the brick again and whispered, "Why now, Morel? Why this girl?" Later that evening, he left another note near the house. He waited until the girl was gone, then placed it gently near the stone pile. This time, he wrote more. "How do you know her name? Why are you building that house? Why no door?" He didn't expect an answer, but part of him needed to ask. He needed something, anything, to make sense of the storm in his heart. The next morning, the note was gone. In its place was something strange. A small drawing done in soft-colored ink. Like a child might draw, 3 figures stood together: a human man, an alien woman, and between them, a small child with silver hair. Jack dropped the paper, his heart racing. This drawing. It was what he had dreamed years ago, back when he and Morel sat on their porch, imagining what their family might look like. He had once sketched something just like this, long ago, but never showed anyone. He had thrown it away after the funeral, but here it was again, drawn by someone who should not know it existed. He walked toward the field for the first time, not just to watch, but to see. The girl saw him coming, but didn't stop building. She placed a brick, then another. Her eyes were focused, hands steady. Jack stood a few feet away and asked in a soft voice, "Who are you?" She didn't answer, but her hands slowed. Her head turned slightly, just enough for him to hear her whisper. "I was made to finish what she started." The words hit him like thunder. He opened his mouth to speak again. But she was already walking away. Her steps were light, quiet, like a ghost fading into the stormy dusk. That night, the winds rose. The sky turned dark. Thunder rumbled far above. Jack sat in his chair, holding the drawing. Staring out the window, the house stood still in the red dust, with no door, no answers, and one girl building as if her life depended on it. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in years, He didn't feel empty somewhere deep inside. A small part of him had started to dream again, and that terrified him more than anything. Jack had always believed that time could heal wounds. But now he knew better. Time didn't heal. It only buried things deeper. Until something or someone came and dug it all up again. The girl was still building, every morning, every evening. Her hands moved slowly, but never stopped. Her face stayed calm, quiet, unreadable. She worked like she had a purpose. Like every brick mattered, Jack didn't return to the field. Not after she whispered those words. I was made to finish what she started. He didn't know what they meant, but they stayed in his mind like a flame. He went back to watching from his cabin window. Only now he watched with purpose. He took notes, counted bricks, timed her breaks. He noticed something strange. Something small but impossible to ignore. Every brick she placed had something written on the back. He couldn't see clearly from his window. But when she turned slightly, he caught glimpses of black letters. Names, he was sure of it. Names of people, one day. He couldn't hold back anymore. He walked down to the house again when she was gone. His boots crunched softly over the red dust. The air smelled like metal and dry wind. He bent beside the wall and touched the edge of a brick. Slowly, carefully, he pulled it loose. It took effort. Like the house didn't want to let go, on the back of the brick. He saw the name Tom Ellis. That name hit him hard. Tom had been his closest friend. A man who had helped Jack and Morel settle into the colony. Tom had died years ago in a mining collapse. His name was not famous, not written in books. So how did this girl know? Jack checked 2 more bricks. One said Sarah Noma, a nurse who had helped deliver their child. Another said Captain Lair, the officer who once warned him about the storm the night Morel died. Jack stepped back, heart pounding. She wasn't just building a house. She was building a memory, a wall of names, later that day. He left her food, bread, fruit, and a bottle of clean water. He placed them near the bricks. No note this time, no questions. The next morning, they were gone, and in their place. She had left a new tool, an old hammer, one he had lost years ago. His initials were still carved into the handle. How did she find it? He had thrown it away after the funeral. From that day on, Jack began to help her, not openly. Not with words, but in small ways, he repaired broken tools. Left fresh nails and wood near the building site. On days when storms came, he left plastic sheets to cover her work. And every time, she used everything he left. Silently, without thanks, but without rejection either. It was their quiet language. He watched her more closely now. Through a small scope he had cleaned for the first time in years, he studied her face. Her movements, her focus. She was young. Too young to know all these things, her eyes held something old. Though not sadness, but memory. Like she carried stories that were not hers. One cold evening, the sky turned orange as the twin suns set behind the hills. Jack sat on his porch, thinking about Morel. About the child they lost. He wondered again who this girl really was. Then, under the last light of the day, he saw her stop building. She stood still. Then placed one final brick before walking away into the shadows. Jack walked to that brick later, curious, and when he turned it over, he froze. There was a piece of cloth under it, folded and soft, almost like a gift. He opened it slowly, fingers trembling. It was Morel's scarf, the one she wore every winter. The one she was wearing the day she died. Jack sat down hard on the ground, holding the cloth to his chest. She couldn't have found this. No one could. He had buried it with her. So how did the girl have it? That night, Jack did not watch from the window. He sat at his old desk, lit a lamp, and began to write. Not a note, not a message, but a letter. A letter to the girl. Or to himself, or maybe to Morel. He wrote for hours. poured out everything, the pain, the questions, the memories, the dreams he buried. He didn't know if he would give the letter to anyone. But he knew this. The girl was not a stranger anymore. She was part of his story now, just like he was becoming part of hers, and whatever this house was, whatever mystery lived inside its walls, it was calling him to remember. Not just what he lost, but what he still might find. Asterisk, the house was almost complete now. Its walls stood tall against the wind. The roof was sealed, the windows clean and strong. But still, no door. Jack couldn't sleep that night. Not with Morel's scarf folded on his table like it had never been buried. He had spent hours holding it. Remembering her voice, her touch, her laugh. The way she used to hum while watering the plants. The way she held her stomach when she spoke about their baby. And now this girl, this silent, silver-skinned stranger, was rebuilding his past. Brick by brick, that morning, the air was thick with dust and heat. Jack drank bitter tea and stared out across the land. The girl was already there, moving slowly, as she always did. But something about her was different today. Her shoulders were heavier, her steps slower. Jack stood, grabbed his coat, and began walking. He didn't care if she saw him anymore. He needed answers. He crossed the dry field, wind pushing at his back. When he reached the house, she looked up at him. Their eyes met. She said nothing, just stepped aside, as if she had been expecting him. For a long moment, they stood in silence. Then Jack asked, in a quiet voice, "May I go in?" She nodded once, and that was enough. He walked around the house, trying to find a way inside, and there, at the back, half hidden behind loose wooden panels, was a narrow gap, just wide enough to slip through. Jack stepped inside, and the world shifted. It was not just a room, it was memory brought to life. The walls were painted the same warm colors he had once used with Morel, a soft red on the left, sky blue on the right. The floor was wooden, smooth and old-fashioned. In the corner stood a rocking chair, the exact same one they had found in the colony market. He ran his hand along the edge of the table. The same kind of table he had eaten at with Morel. The same kind of lamp sat in the corner, glowing softly with yellow light. Jack moved slowly, like walking through a dream. Everything was too perfect, too familiar. And then he saw the hallway, a narrow passage leading to the back of the house. He followed it, his heart pounding. At the end of the hallway was a small wooden door. Not locked, just resting shut. He pushed it open, and what he saw made his knees weak. It was a nursery. A small crib stood under a starlight lamp. Soft alien music played from a corner speaker. On the walls were tiny drawings, animals, suns, moons, plants just like the ones he and Morel had once painted. But the most shocking thing of all was the photo on the shelf. It showed him Morel and a child with silver white hair. Smiling between them, Jack stepped closer. Eyes wide, this photo. It was impossible. No such picture had ever been taken. Morel died before they could take one, the child. She had never lived long enough. He picked it up, his hand shaking. The girl was small, but her face looked like Morel's. Her smile was soft, her eyes kind. He turned to look at the girl, who stood silently at the door. Watching him, Jack whispered, "Where did you get this?" The girl walked in and said, softly, "I didn't get it." She paused, then added, "I remembered it." Jack's breath caught in his throat. But how? This never happened. The girl looked down, her fingers touching the crib gently. "Maybe not in your life," she said, "but in mine, it did." He stared at her, the truth circling him like wind. Could it be? Was she? Before he could speak, she said, "I was never born, not like others, but I was made from pieces. From data, from dreams." Jack stepped back, overwhelmed. "What are you?" he asked. She looked up, eyes glowing faintly. I am the child that never was. And the builder of what could have been. He couldn't breathe. He sat down on the floor. Heart beating like thunder. The house had no door. Because it was not meant to be entered by strangers, it was meant to be discovered by him. A home built from grief, from memory, from love too strong to stay buried. The girl knelt beside him and placed her hand over his. Jack didn't pull away. He whispered, "Your name." Was supposed to be Luma. She smiled softly. I know, and in that quiet moment, surrounded by wood, memory, and silence, Jack realized something. She hadn't just built a house. She had opened a door inside him. One that had been closed for years, and now it was wide open. Jack didn't return to his cabin that night. He sat on the wooden floor of the nursery, hands resting on his knees. Heart full of quiet thunder, the girl sat nearby, her silver hair catching the light like moonlight caught in glass. Neither spoke for a long time, but somehow, the silence felt full, not empty. He had called her Luma, and she had smiled. That name, once only a dream, now felt real in his mouth, like it had always belonged to her. Jack looked again at the strange photograph on the shelf. His hands reached for it, and he studied every detail. The image felt impossible, but also familiar. Morel's smile, his own arms holding a child. The way the light hit their faces, none of it could have been faked. "How do you remember something that never happened?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. Luma looked at him with soft eyes. "I don't know how to explain it," she whispered. "But sometimes I feel things, memories that aren't mine, but feel like mine." Jack stood slowly, his legs stiff. "There has to be something more," he said, "a reason." A truth that night, as Luma lay curled up in the corner of the nursery. Jack walked outside under the red stars. The house stood strong behind him, quiet like a sleeping child. He walked to the far wall and began pulling at one of the bricks. It felt wrong to tear it apart, but the questions inside him wouldn't rest. Finally, with effort, the brick loosened. And as it fell from the wall, Jack caught it in both hands. The weight was heavier than it looked. He turned it over and saw the name written on the back. Luma. He paused, his breath catching. Then he noticed something strange. One corner of the brick had a small metal plate embedded in it, something electronic. He pulled gently and found a tiny hidden chip. Jack stared at it in the moonlight, heart racing. He recognized the Taipan old data chip, the kind used for private messages or recordings. He ran back to his cabin, to the dusty shelf where he kept forgotten tools. Among them was a device that could still read memory chips. He blew the dust off and powered it on. The screen flickered to life. Shaky but working, he slid the chip in, and the screen turned blue. Then a face appeared. Morel. Jack's breath stopped. She was smiling, eyes full of warmth. "Voice clear as water, Jack," she said. "If you're seeing this, then it means the dream didn't die completely." Jack sat down hard. Hands shaking, "I knew the risks of the pregnancy," she continued. "And I prepared something for after. In case I didn't make it." Tears rolled down Jack's cheeks as he listened. "We used to talk about Luma like she was already here. And maybe, in a way, she was," Morel said. "So I saved what I could, our memories. DNA from both of us, images of the home we wanted. The love we shared." The screen flickered, then continued. "I sent it all to the biofoundry on Station Vexa, and told them to store it." Jack's eyes widened. Station Vexa was shut down years ago, abandoned after an AI failure. "But if you're seeing this," Morel said, her voice soft now, "then maybe." Someone brought her back. Jack looked toward the window, toward the house glowing faintly in the night. "She won't be like us," Jack Morel said. "But she will be part of us, made from us, guided by us." The screen dimmed, then faded. Jack sat in silence, no words left in him. He had thought the house was a mystery, but now he saw it for what it truly was, a message. Built from memory, DNA, love, and code. Luma wasn't just a girl building a house. She was the house, the dream. The child of two people who never stopped loving each other. Even after death, Jack returned the brick to the wall. Hands steady now when he stepped back outside. He saw her standing in the doorway. The wind pulling gently at her hair, she looked at him. And he didn't need to speak. She already knew. She stepped forward and placed her hand in his, small and warm, together. They stood in front of the house, not as strangers, but as family finding each other in the ruins of the past. Jack whispered, "You're not just a dream, Luma. You're the proof that love never ends." And she whispered back, "I was made to remember, but I want to live." The sky turned dark 3 days later. Not from nightfall, but from the storm. Everyone on the planet Jorah knew the red storms were dangerous. But this one felt different. The clouds spun faster than usual. Sharp winds howled across the land, and the air felt electric, like it was holding its breath. Jack stood outside the house with Luma beside him. Her silver hair whipped around her face as she looked up at the sky. Her eyes didn't show fear, only focus. Like she was already planning what to do next. The house behind them stood strong. Built by memory, grief, and something stronger, hope. But even hope could be shaken by a storm like this. Jack knew what the wind could do. He had seen roofs torn from homes, metal bent like paper, and people vanish into the dust. But now, this house was more than bricks and walls. It was Luma's home, and in some quiet way, his too. "We have to protect it," Jack said. Tightening the straps of his coat, Luma nodded. Already moving toward the supply shed she had built last week, together they pulled out tools. Ropes, long metal rods, and plastic sheets. They worked in silence, side by side, as thunder cracked in the distance. Jack hammered support beams into the ground. Luma sealed the windows with thick coverings. They layered the roof with extra panels and tied the corners tight with cords. The wind was rising fast now, carrying sharp dust and tiny rocks. It stung their faces and pulled at their clothes. But they didn't stop. Jack looked at her this strange, quiet girl who had come from nothing but data and dreams and felt something rise in his chest. Not fear, but pride. She didn't back away from the storm. She faced it, brick by brick, just like she built everything else. By nightfall, the sky was black. Only flashes of red lightning showed the shape of the land. The storm roared like a beast trying to tear the world apart. Inside the house, everything shook. The walls groaned, the roof creaked. Dust slipped through tiny cracks, but the structure held. Jack and Luma sat in the center room, their backs against the nursery wall. Tools in hand, ready for anything. A loud bang echoed through the house. One of the outer panels had come loose. Jack stood quickly, grabbing a rope. "I'll fix it," he shouted over the wind. But before he could reach the doorless gap, Luma was already there. Pulling the panel back into place, her hands moved fast. Her body steady. Jack rushed to help. Together they nailed it back down. Their hands bloody from splinters. Their eyes filled with dust, the storm screamed around them. But the house stood, they returned inside. Breathless, exhausted, soaked in sweat. Then, silence. The wind slowed, the lightning faded, the storm was passing. They sat there, surrounded by bricks and memories, listening to the quiet return. Luma leaned her head on Jack's shoulder. And for the first time, he didn't flinch. He rested his hand gently on hers. They had protected the house, not just from the storm, but from the weight of the past. Jack looked around. The nursery glowing faintly, the lamp still standing, untouched. "This place is stronger than it looks," he whispered. Luma smiled. It was never just a house, she said softly. It was a promise. Jack felt something shift inside him. Something heavy finally lifting. You don't have to build any more, Luma, he said. It's finished. She looked at him, her eyes shining. I didn't build it for me, she said. I built it for us. Outside, the land was calm again. The stars breaking through the clouds, Luma stood and walked to the front wall. She reached into her tool bag and pulled out a wooden frame door. Unfinished, waiting, Jack stood beside her. Watched as she lifted it slowly into place. It fit perfectly into the space they had once left blank. She turned to him, her voice soft, full of something new. May I stay? Jack didn't speak right away. He simply walked over, placed his hand on the frame. Then nodded. Yes, he said, not to build, but to live for the first time. The house had a door, not because it needed one, but because they were no longer afraid of letting someone in. The storm had passed, but something else remained. Not dust, not damage, but a feeling, a quiet peace that hung in the air like morning mist. Jack stood outside the house, the sun rising behind him, casting long shadows over the red dirt beside him. Luma tightened the last screw into the new wooden door. Her hands moved gently, like she wasn't just finishing a task but sealing a promise. The door clicked softly into place, and they both stepped back, looking at it in silence. For weeks, that doorway had remained empty, a silent symbol of something unfinished. But now, with the door in place, the house felt complete, not just a shelter, not just bricks and walls, but a home. Jack turned the handle slowly, then opened it wide. The hinges creaked slightly, but the sound felt right, natural, welcoming. He stepped aside and looked at Luma. You first, he said with a quiet smile. She nodded and stepped through the doorway. Into the house she had built from memory, from hope, from pieces of a life that almost never existed. The inside looked the same as before, warm colors, soft light. The nursery glowing gently, but everything felt new now. Because this time, they were walking in together. Not as strangers, but as family. That afternoon, Jack and Luma planted seeds in the soil near the porch. The land was dry, but not dead. With care and water, life could grow again. Jack taught her how to dig small holes, how deep to place each seed, how to cover it without crushing it. She listened carefully, smiled often, and asked questions not about the past, but about how things worked, how plants grew, how seasons changed. Jack realized something, watching her kneel in the dirt, laughing as the wind played with her hair. She wasn't just built to remember. She was built to live. Days turned into weeks. And the house became more than a secret. People from the colony started noticing the little home in the distance. First came a trader looking for shelter from a dust storm. Then came a mother and her child, curious about the strange design. Jack was surprised when people stayed longer than expected. They would sit on the porch, ask about the flowers growing, talk with Luma about the way she built the house. She never mentioned the memory chips, the names in the bricks, or the lab that made her. She just smiled and said, "This house was made for love." Jack didn't say much either. But when people left, they always seemed lighter, like something inside them had shifted one morning. Jack stepped outside and saw something that made his heart stop. A group of children had come. They were helping Luma paint the fence around the garden. Bright colors, reds and blues and yellows. Luma was laughing with them, her hands covered in paint, her silver hair tied back in a messy braid. Jack stood frozen, watching. He had once dreamed of a child painting outside his home, long ago, with Morel by his side. And now that dream had returned, not exactly the same, but close enough to make his eyes fill with tears. Later that evening, Jack and Luma sat on the porch. The sky filled with stars. The garden was growing. The fence was colorful. and the house glowed warmly behind them. Jack looked at her and asked gently, "Do you miss the building part?" Luma shook her head, smiling. "No," she said. "I was always building toward something. I just didn't know what." Jack nodded slowly. "And now?" She looked out at the field, at the children's footprints in the dirt. At the path others had started walking toward their little home. "Now I build in other ways," she said. "In smiles, in gardens, in conversations." Jack leaned back. Hands behind his head. "You know," he said, "I think Morel would have loved this." Luma reached over and held his hand. "She already does," she whispered. The wind carried the sound of laughter from somewhere beyond the hill. The stars blinked gently overhead, and the house stood strong. Its door wide open, its windows full of light. It was no longer a place to hide from grief. It was a place where dreams, once lost, had found new ground. A place where a human man and an alien daughter, born from love and code, had created something no storm could break. Not just a house, but a home.